If your blood runs orange and blue, this is the pod for you. You're listening to Orange and Blue Bloods, hosted by EJ Stewart and Tommy Beer. Let's get to it, New York.
So let's begin with this opportunity that the Knicks have in front of themselves in this series. So they had the opportunity to win their first playoff series in 10 years. 2013 was the last time the Knicks made it past the first round. That was when Carmelo Anthony and J.R. Smith and Tyson Chandler was leading the Knicks. Now they have the same opportunity right ahead of them here with the Cleveland Cavaliers. They play Game 5 in Cleveland on Wednesday. The Knicks are coming off two emotional home wins in Games 3 and Game 4 at Madison Square Garden. New York has been led by star guard Jalen Brunson. He's averaging 24 points a game. He's shooting 45% from the field, along with 5 assists and 4 rebounds in these playoffs. But they'll need more from Julius Randle. He is suffering through one of the worst stretches of the season, maybe the worst stretch of the season for him. He's scoring just 14 points a game on 32% shooting for this series. He was benched in the fourth quarter of Game 4. Meanwhile, the Cavs are also looking to bounce back in a major way after dropping 2 games on the road. Donovan Mitchell, their all-star point guard or all-star shooting guard, scored just 2 points in the fourth quarter of their Game 4 loss at MSG. So, Tommy, what will be the key to the Knicks clinching this series on Wednesday?
Yeah, I think it's the things that they have done well that have got them to this 3-1 lead. Just that's kind of their secret sauce. It's nothing crazy. It's nothing outlandish. Rebound the basketball. They're 3-0 when the team that leads the game in rebounds is won 0-4 of these contests. The Knicks are 3-0 when they win the turnover battle. So it's just those little things that take care of the basketball, rebound the basketball, defend, obviously. I think the first quarter in this Game 5 will be particularly important, a little bit more so than previous contests and maybe regular season or postseason games, because obviously the Cavs' confidence is shaken. The weight of expectations is, of the pressures obviously shifted to Cleveland. There's win or go home games, do or die games, must win games. In an elimination game, all those cliches apply. And there's a reason why the elimination game is the hardest game to win. You're fighting a desperate animal, a cornered animal, and a Cavs team that's talented. They have a superstar, obviously, in Donovan Mitchell, who's capable of scoring 50, 40 points. So we know about the talent they have there. We've seen Garland explode, for big quarters and big games. So keep those guys in check. Do what you got to do on the defensive end. And again, it's not complicated. You have keep the game close. Obviously Knicks fans would prefer a blowout, but you have the ultimate closer in Jalen Brunson, who's proven what he can do. He's been the best player in the series. And obviously the X factors. What do we get from Julius Randle? How does he perform? Is it possible for RJ Barrett to maintain the momentum that he's built up for the 2 games in New York? So should be a fascinating game. And again, do what you do well and control what you can control. And ideally, you want to get out to a good start. You don't want to get, because obviously, you want to keep the Cavs on their toes and have that there's going to be an anxious feeling at tip-off in that arena amongst the players, the coaching staff, and the fans. You want to keep that, you don't want to let them breathe a sigh of relief. You want to keep them on their toes all night.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned that anxious feeling. I mean, again, kind of just seeing the other side going on, what's happening in Cleveland and some of the reaction. I mean, they are right now stunned kind of what's happening. So I do agree. I think the first quarter will be important. If Knicks can weather a big storm in the first quarter, if they can even get out to a lead in the first quarter, that could really take the crowd out of it very quickly, and that could end up shaping how the rest of that game goes. I think one of the keys for the Knicks for me will be to find help for Jalen Brunson. I think that in a lot of these games, the Knicks have really not played a full, complete game offensively yet, still, despite being up 3-1. It was Hart and RJ in Game 4. It was RJ in Game 3. Game 1, it was Randle and Hart. But they haven't gotten, 4 or 5 guys really in the mix to kind of complement Jalen Brunson's offense. It's kind of been a mixed bag of guys. And I think that it's going to be important that the Knicks get some of these guys going. I know Jalen Brunson is going to play relatively well. That's just kind of who he's been. But and usually they'll get someone else to play well, maybe one other guy, but they're going to need, I think, another guy or 2 other guys to help him out. So I'm looking at Emmanuel quickly as a guy to say, hey, like, he's got to break out of this funk at some point. I mean, he's only had 1 game, I think, in 2 games, I guess, technically double figures. That game 2. I don't even count, but he really hasn't made an impact in this series yet. So you would think with the Cavs maybe readjusting their defenses to how RJ is playing, maybe that opens things up for Emmanuel quickly more. I mean, he's got to get going at some point. And, we can talk about Julius Randle. I mean, he has struggled mightily in this series. I said on podcast we recorded yesterday that I don't see him as a playoff player just because that's what I've now seen 9 games in. If he could break out of this, that would be a great thing. But they're going to need someone besides Jalen Brunson, I think, to help. It's kind of like the opposite of what you think normally, I think, in the playoffs, where you say, your stars win on the road and your role players kind of win games at home. I think for the Knicks, if they're going to win this game, it actually may be the opposite. I think you can kind of expect to get a pretty good game from your star and Jalen Brunson, but you need these other guys to give them something. If he doesn't get anything from those guys, then the Knicks will not win this game because the Cavs are going to be playing with desperation.
I am going to call an IQ breakout game today. I'm going to go on
Wow.
record.
Okay.
Yeah. Again, we're recording Tuesday, so it'll be Wednesday. But I think IQ's due. He hasn't taken a lot of shots. He's 2 of 3 from the 3-point arc in the previous contest. So it seems like he's kind of trending in the right direction. I think he'll get. They haven't released the injury report yet. It sounds like Grimes. I would assume he'll be listed as questionable. But we still got some time there. We'll see if we get any update from Tibbs after shoot around on Tuesday, or after Tuesday's practice. We'll see how that goes. I would probably expect him not to play. They obviously won game 4. There's no need to. It doesn't seem like there's any need to rush him back. They need him healthy if they're going to make a long run. So probably err on the side of caution. If he doesn't play Wednesday, then maybe you bring him back Friday at the Garden. But as you mentioned, there's a lot of uncertainty there. I'd like to see McBride get a few minutes. We've talked about that. Can Obi continue to play well in spot minutes? I think IQ's due. He's just too talented of a player. He struggled through the first 4 games. We have an 80+ game sample size this season. He's been his 3rd best player, and has really been, defensively he's done his job, done exactly what you've asked. So it's certainly not like he's had no impact. But offensively, again, he's just too talented of an offensive contributor. We know he can knock down threes. Get into the lane. I'd like to see him drive a little bit, maybe get to the free throw line, see the ball go through the basket a couple times, and then get in the paint. Use that floater that he's worked so well, that little midi turnaround that he's perfected this season. Find ways. I think the Knicks should make a focus of getting him involved as well. I think IQ is due for a big game, and I think he, has one of those big IQ off the bench games on Wednesday.
Knicks could definitely use it. I think that of all the players, I feel like Quickly, now after playing 4 games, I feel like Quickly has been the one that has been most disrupted by the Cavs' length. I think that seeing Caris LeVert on him on ball, seeing Allen and Mobley kind of hovering around the paint, I think that of all the players, he's been the guy most affected by it and not being able to crack the code yet. It's 4 games in now, so if it's not going to happen now, it ain't going to happen in the series, so they could use a big game from IQ. Real quickly, I did want to talk about Donovan Mitchell as well because he has struggled a little bit, especially in the last few games, especially game 4. Are you expecting a big bounce back from Mitchell? We know there's a lot of pressure on him. Now the conversation going, hey, is this going to be another playoff, ouster where you get dominated by Jalen Brunson? What do you expect from Donovan Mitchell coming into game 5?
Yeah, I expect a big game from Mitchell. Again, you talk about talent, offensive skill sets. This guy has it all. A lot of those shots in and out, a game of inches, make or miss league. If Mitchell hits one of those threes that would have cut the lead to 1 in the 4th quarter, there was a couple of opportunities where he had some shots that if he had hit, would stem the either Knicks momentum or get, continue when the Cavs were on that roll in game 3. We saw in game 1, 38 points on an efficient shooting. He kind of passed the baton to Garland in game 2 when they got their win. I think Mitchell is comfortable, being a guy that takes 30 shots in a big game, make or miss. He's putting the work. He's earned the opportunity, and he's going to be blamed if they win, if they lose anyway. So you might as well go down, fighting. So I expect him to get a ton of shots up, and when you get a scorer like that and giving him a high volume number of shots. I expect a lot of those shots to go in. So yeah, is that necessarily great for the Cavs? Again, we saw in Game 2 where
Yeah.
their most the one game they won is the game. I think he had
13
13
assists, I think.
assists.
Yeah.
Right. I think he had 17 points, but 13 assists in that game. So when he really dished the ball, but again, I think he's going to go down and especially early, set the turn early, come out firing. Knicks need to make him work on the defensive end. But yeah, to answer your question directly, I expect Mitchell to put up some big numbers in game 5.
Yeah, it's a good point you mentioned about like how the only game they won, he really wasn't all that aggressive offensively, looking for a shot. He was
Right.
getting guys involved. And in his best game, game 1, that was a game where he probably scored the most points and made the most impact and almost had to lift his team by himself. I think he had 38, but they lost that game. So, and he took, I think, 28 shots, 29 shots in that game as well. So, yeah, that's the thing about the Cavs. That's the one thing that is tough. It's tough for any team when you're down 3-1. Like, it's kind of hard to find like a recipe for like what is our path to beating the Knicks. Like I think game two feels so much like an outlier because the Knicks were just out of it so badly in the second quarter. Where the only thing you take away from that is like, well, Garland got really hot. And the Knicks turned the ball over a million times. I guess if you're Cleveland, you say, look, we can try to maybe be more aggressive on our double teams, which has been their plan. But, it's a little different at home. You got a little more juice, a little more energy, a little more fire under the legs. Maybe you get a little more active, start to cause some more of those turnovers, get out in open court. But when you don't have a clear roadmap to how exactly you find a win in a series, I think it's difficult to get over that hump, which is why a lot of these teams don't come back from 3-1. They don't even win a game down 3-1. A lot of these times, these series just end in 5 games because you don't have a way to say, okay, this is what we need to do to beat this team. You don't have much evidence. And I think this particular team has a very weird game to look at and say, well, that game, I don't know if we're going to see that Knicks team again. So it does make it a little tough for them. So I don't know. I don't know if Mitchell, I think he'll play well. I think he'll score a lot. I just don't know if that means that they win per se. I think a lot of it will have more to do probably with their defense than it will be even how much he scores. If the Knicks are able to win this game and they are able to beat the Cavs in 5 games, which is on the table because this is the situation they're in, like what would that say to you about where the Knicks are at this point? I mean, this was a series that anyone outside of New York was not favoring the Knicks. There were people picking them, but it wasn't a lot. A lot of people said the Cavs had too much talent, too much star power for the Knicks to handle them. If the Knicks flip this around and win this in 5 games, what would that mean for the Knicks season and just kind of where they are in their quest to build a champion?
It's a major statement. I mean, look, it's one thing to beat a team. Maybe Mitchell injures an ankle and you somehow escape in 7 games or something like that. Go into the series, you get a couple bounces to go the right way, and you struggle some games, play well in some games, but you eventually, that in and of itself is a credit to the team, and obviously a gold stamp on the trajectory of the franchise. But if you're able to knock this healthy Cavs team out in 5 games, and again, as we've talked about, with your leading scorer struggling mightily, with your third best player, not being able to buy a shot on the offensive end, it just speaks to the depth. It speaks to Brunson's brilliance. The centers, the 2-headed monster of Mitch and Ihart, their ability to dominate the paint. It is a major statement by the Knicks, by this team, by this franchise. And look, we'll talk about the Heat and the Bucks kind of scenario. But if you want now you got to get serious. Now you got to get greedy. If you can knock the Cavs out in 5, you give yourself time to rest. Grimes more time to recuperate. Randall, if the ankle's barking on him, a couple days to ice and all that rehab stuff. Maybe he gets a little bit healthier. Those are the things you're thinking about if you're, thinking about making a long run at this point that the Knicks have to do so. So you want to take care of business. Again, we'll talk about the Miami Milwaukee series, but that opportunity is sitting there. So now is the if you are serious about making a run to the Eastern Conference Finals, which isn't crazy, because at this very moment, I'm not sure what Vegas has I think that the Heat are probably favored to win the series. like minus 150 or something along those lines. But slight favorites, obviously with the 3-1 lead. No one's counting out the Bucks.
Yeah.
But the Knicks are now favored. If both teams, Miami and both favorites advance, now both series favorites, Miami and the Knicks. Not only will the Knicks, show that they could beat the Miami in the regular season, they'd have home court advantage. Vegas would probably have them favored to advance to the Eastern Conference Finals. So all this stuff is on the periphery. If you want to make it seem more realistic, get the job done Wednesday night in Cleveland.
Yeah, and then you talk about rest and versus getting ready to go for a second round series. That other series is a 5-game series, so like if you lose this game, now the Heat get more time to rest and they can get their guys fresh potentially. So that's why this game is very important. The Knicks are not favored in this game, but it's a game that they can win. So it's gonna be big for them. But yeah, if they win this series in 5 games, it would just speak to the great job that Leon Rose has done building a true team, which is what I think sometimes we really lose sight of what's like important in terms of building a champion because we get so focused on superstar, and like we know that is important. We know almost every team that's won a championship in the last 50 years, maybe like they almost always have had at least one superstar, but you still need to build a good team. Very few teams have won championships that had a superstar but didn't have a well-balanced, strong, solid team. And the Knicks have at least built that. I'm not saying I don't know if they have a superstar given how Brunson is playing. Right. I'm not going to say they don't. I can't say that anymore. I'm going to say I don't know. I don't know if they have a superstar, but I know they've built a strong team. And that is half the battle. So it feels like the superstar thing is not that far away. So if they beat the Cavs, that would really speak a lot to the job that Leon Rose has done in building a true team. So Knicks Cavs is a 7 p.m. start. Interesting, weird note about the programming. You can watch on MSG as you always would, but also it's on NBA TV, not on TNT, not on a national cable channel, so to speak. I guess MSG technically is, but you're not going to get it on ESPN, not getting on TNT. So if you're looking to watch it from a national perspective, you're not going to find it on those channels. You got to go to NBA TV. If you don't have NBA TV outside of New York City, you might be a little screwed. I don't know.
Which is a bad job for the NBA not to have this game on one of either TNT or ESPN like that.
They kind of the way they put this is weird because there's 4 games on that night. I don't know how they messed this up, and then you kind of technically have like 3 Eastern teams because the Grizzlies are one of the teams that are playing at home, so they have to move the Bucks all the way up to 9:30, so they have an 8:30 local start, which seems ridiculous for them. And the Grizzlies, they have a 6:30 start, so they also got screwed too. So somehow they had 3 teams that are in the Eastern and Central time zone. Well, actually, 3 teams Eastern Central time zone, and it all kind of screwed everything up. But yeah, the NBA did not do a good job with this, and which is what I've been complaining about really since this playoff started. Is how they're putting these games together. Some of the long layoffs, none of it has made much sense. And now I think arguably the series that's been most compelling, maybe with the exception of the Kings Warriors series, is going to be played on NBA TV because you got to get LeBron on national TV, and we have 3 teams playing that are all in the same time zone essentially. So that kind of screwed them up. But if you're going to watch this game, Knicks Cavs game 5, MSG or NBA TV. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. If you want to see more of our videos, be sure to check out our playlist and let us know what you think in the comments below.
Also, don't forget to follow us on social media to stay up to date on our latest podcast ventures. Links will be in the descriptions. And as always, thanks for watching, and we will see you in our next video.